Hi guys, and welcome back to another YouTube video. In this video we'll be going through the Fremantle Dockers AFL Fantasy Preview for 2023, and this is the fifth last one I believe they finished fifth last year, so we're getting close to the end, and with the community vote at the point that it is at the moment, it looks like I will be doing the mid prices, defender, midfield, ruckman and forward, as that is what the community wants. Remember to like and subscribe, as it is crucial for this channel to grow and allow this community that we're building to grow, as well as I create more content that you guys want me to create and release. So now if I go on to my screen, you'll see here again, I will make this a little bit bigger. There we go, that should be better. I've done my usual in highlighting key players from the Dockers. We'll do the list on the side and then we'll go to the players I have on my bench. So Brayshaw last year started off the season really strong, with, let's look here, if I go over to 2022 and scroll down and then go fixtures, match stats, okay, he did a 120, 181, 95, 110, 123, 116, that's all. What's that, probably about a 120 average through the first 5-6 rounds. It's pretty good. I think he'll get somewhere around that, the same marker. He does have a tendency to be able to be tagged out of games relative to his average, like decreases of about 30 to 40 points. But with the emergence of Sarong and others into the team as well next year, this coming year, he might not be the one that gets tagged, as I think Sarong's probably the more dangerous player. It's similar to the likes of Sydney with Chav Warner being tagged rather than Callum Mills, as Warner can be more damaging, and I think Sarong can be more damaging, but Brayshaw will just pick up the disposals anyway. So that's him. Now if I go over to here, you'll see get out of that. Next is Will Brodie, a guy that, the thing is, if he had a better time, if this shows here, I believe it does, his time on ground was 70%, and if you think about it, if he was able to get his time on ground up to like a 80-85%, he'd be averaging, what's that, probably 115, 120, but the problem for him is that his time on ground's that low, that it's just so low that it's almost impossible to get good points. And then if his actual points per minute decreases, then you're struggling here for actual good points. So I thought early in preseason that he'd be better because he'd have a full preseason, but it doesn't look like he's gonna, he's always had a full preseason, it looks like. And if we go back to 2021, 69%, 2020, 67, 75, 72%, 67. So his highest is 75%. And if you see that back up to 75%, he'll go 101, which is all right, but I don't think he'll go back to that. He'll get up to ever that premium mid that has that 85 to 90% time on ground, enabling him to get that 120, 115. So I think there's probably, at his price range, what are we looking at, 845, you can just have Mitchell there at for another 6 or 7k, cover off most of the comp, and you got a guy that's going to average more than Will Brodie. Sarong's a guy that I'm looking into, thinking that he could easily jump up. 777k, he's that interesting price point where you probably have to take if you put him in your team, you're taking a little bit of a risk. And that's the same with Shearer as well. So there's another guy that I'm debating putting in my team. He could easily have that big breakout year, if we look at 2022 and we look at his match stats, you'll see he had this really good run pretty much here, except for this 68 game. The problem I have with him is if you see here and we look at his time on ground's only 76%, so we probably need to see that up to 82, 83% for him. But I wonder if he's just slowly going to get the tank available for that. But I think he will. He's a young midfielder. As he grows, as he gets more pre-seasons under his belt, he'll play better, as well as getting more time on ground. Next guy, Sean Darcy. He's just, I think there's too much of a pain from last year for a lot of people to select him. I didn't end up going for him at any point last year, but he has a big ability to just drop a 45, a 60 with full time on ground, 67 here, a 45 here with 71% time on ground. And with Jackson there, Jackson's gonna take more of a ruck role than I think Lob would. So I think maybe you have a little bit less hit outs than he did last year, and that's a fair chunk of his scoring output is through hit outs. So it's going to be a problem if he can't get the hit outs necessary. Now on to Luke Ryan. He's a guy at 756 I've looked into. He does have the high scoring capability. The only problem with him is that he does have a capability to drop very, very low scores. If we look here, he dropped a 45, a 60 here, 60, 60, 60, and then once he started to get the ball, even here, again, he dropped a 42. I do think that was in a rain-affected game, so his marking does heavily rely on marking. As you can see here, 15, 7, 11 high mark games. So if it's wet conditions, he does struggle. But he does have the capabilities to go up. I just don't think I think more of the onus will be put onto Hayden Young rather than Luke Ryan for ball distribution. So thus, I think Hayden Young's a player that I'd go for. O'Meara, no. Jordan Clark, not really. I don't think he'll take the step up again that's needed for him at his price tag. You really need him to go 95, 100. I think he's just an 85, 90 guy. So I don't think he gets that upgrade that you really need out of a guy at 722k. He is young, so he could easily have a growth year. I just think with the way Fremantle play, I believe in preseason they've said that they're going to more of a kick mark structure rather than more of a kick mark structure. So Jordan Clark could benefit from this. But I do think it'll be more of a Luke Ryan and Hayden Young benefit than Jordan Clark, who's more of a using a speed type player. Age 5, Jackson no, Chapman no. What is he? 0.4%. I just know there's a lot of guys here that are just overpriced for their output. Then you have Neil Erasmus, who's a guy that could easily break in. I just think for what he's going to produce, I think you probably want someone around that 300k if you're going to get him. He's going to be basically like a rookie almost all over again, but I do think he does get to play. And then down here, you got Corey Wagner. I think he could get a game, and that's why he's so highly owned. At 25 years old, I think he's a mature age guy. He's probably going to get quicker than a lot of the other rookie defenders, so he could be a round one guy. But I just think with what's coming out now that Chess is going to play, and I think Cowan will play over him, and I can save money and use it on midfield guys that are going to, on the big midfielders, and they'll produce more cash than a Corey Wagner. And then nothing's here. So now I go on to the players I have on field. Is it just? No. Okay, we have some. So Hayden Young, as I've talked about, with comparison to other ball distributing defenders, I think he's the one this year. He's going to be taking 50-50 kickouts with Luke Ryan, I expect, probably. And I think, let's look at his match stats from last year. You'll see here, 81-102, he had a lean patch here. So he's He's that guy that I think has shown that he has the capability to basically only to have a low game of like 70s basically, and his high games will be those 100 scores. And I think he's just a guy I'm willing to take a risk on because he's shown progression, I believe, almost year on year at this point. Yeah, so 41, 68, and then 88. I think he steps up to that 100 and becomes a D2, D3 guy for me at least. Maybe dropping down to D4 at the end of the season. But I think you got to have him and Dacos in just because of the roles, the better role that they're getting in comparison to other players. And then we come to another, just scanning here. There's no one in my midfield, no rucks, no one on field here. And then I get to Matthew Johnson. He's just a 200k guy that could debut. I don't think it's looking likely that he'll debut now, I believe, from the Twitter stuff that I've been hearing. But he's just a guy, and then we'll see with other rookies whether I can get other rookies in place of him, etc., in case he doesn't play. So now if I go over here and go over to, this was a Twitter tweet from the recent Freo match sim, and 5 solid up forward, minimal mid minutes, pretty much put him out of the case for any AFL Fantasy related teams. Matthew Johnson in the B team, so like I was saying just a minute ago, that could be an iffy thing, but also you could take the positive that they want to see him up against the A side and how he will perform and whether he's up to the level that they need him to be. But also you can see the downside in that they have people ahead of him, I guess. So it's one to look into. Then it has here Young, impressive again. That's why I have him in. And O'Meara, Sarong, Jackson. But Brayshaw and Darcy didn't play. So that probably means a negative now for Matt Johnson, that Brayshaw didn't play. Don't look too much into it for Jackson, as Darcy's going to be number 1 ruck, and that'll be a 65-35 split, maybe even a 70-30 split, so I don't think Jackson's an option. Sarong, yep, he's definitely an option there. It's a little bit, I think it's probably a little bit more risky than a Shearer, but definitely an option. And O'Meara, something tells me I just wouldn't touch him at, what is he, 30? He's 28. Wow, he feels old. But if we look here at O'Meara, it's just 82 last year, year before that 95. So he does have the capability, but I think he's just been brought into the Freo system not to be that fantasy scorer that he was, I believe, when he made this 99. It was for the Hawks. Yeah, it was for the Hawks. So 99s for the Hawks are probably a little bit different to Freo, who he's going to be 3rd or 4th choice rather than 2nd choice to Mitchell, basically, at the Hawks system. So if I go back to this camera, that's my review of the Fremantle Dockers for the 2023 AFL Fantasy season. If you guys have different thoughts to mine, then leave them in the comments, as it will allow us to have a discussion and think about the positives and negatives of each player. Remember to like and subscribe, and if you want to watch my other AFL Fantasy content, there will be a playlist, especially the AFL Fantasy team previews that I've done before this, and I'll see you in another video. See you guys.